YouTube? Welcome back to Universe X, and today we are about to just go into the final little bits of prepping for Dragon Ball Super Card Game Festival Miami. And yeah, that should actually be really cool. There's a lot of little meaty info in here, but I'm gonna try not to go too long, so I'm gonna jump right into the plugs. First and foremost, the boy, if you haven't subscribed yet and you like the content, you should think about hitting that subscribe button. I think it's gonna be worth your while, and we're only gonna keep doing more and more content. So best stay tuned, I'm serious. That being said, if you want to receive more official announcements and spoilers, go visit the official Facebook group. If you want to see all the discussion and meet people that also love to play the game, go visit the discussion group on Facebook. You also have the Reddit, where like-minded people also dwell. You have the Universe X Facebook group, which will eventually become a forum. You got the Universe X Discord, which is growing more and more every day. And yeah. If you want to look at Universe X in a different light and different forms of content, you've also got UniX DB as well as UniX Gacha. So those are just channels that I play different games on. If you like video games as well and you like the kind of content I put out, I'm there too. So beyond that, what we're going to actually go into the fact that you can find cool metal leaders off of TCGMetalZ. I almost slipped right there. You almost caught me slipping. But no. Great product, cool pieces that you can add to your collection. About to do a giveaway soon, and yeah, you can use the code UNIX at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order. Help the homie, help out me. It is what it is. Now, moving into the meat and potatoes. Going into Festival Miami, we actually have a much more established meta, okay? Much more solid. So what we are currently looking at, right, is at the top, I would place 3 decks that shine more than other decks. Now, this isn't to say they're the most represented, but this is to say that head and shoulders, they are on a different level of power than the other decks in the format. And there is a bit of unfortunate parts to it, and those unfortunate parts are that these decks are not new decks. At the top, you have King Piccolo. I would say behind King Piccolo, you have both Gogeta Zeno and Shenron. And we're gonna have another tier of decks that I get into to talk about, where they fit and how you should prepare. But these are the decks that I feel like you cannot go into a tournament with one of them as an auto loss, or you will have holes in your record. Your deck, between your 65 or I guess at max 75 cards, you need to have answers to these decks. And if you don't, you're just in for a bad time. So we'll start off with King Piccolo, since that's the big bad in the room, all right? King Piccolo is a deck that is able to go off. It is able to put out battle cards for free. It is the last of the free play decks right now, essentially. It's able to defend itself fairly well because one time per turn, it's going to combo for free. On top of that, it's got a lot of cards on the board that can do things with. You are kind of in a weird space because every turn you give King Piccolo to breathe, it can amass massive amounts of attacks. However, every turn you're not dealing with the board, you are actually putting yourself in a position to where they can double the amount of swings on you. It is absolutely scary, vicious. So when it comes to this, you're stuck in a very weird place. So when you're fighting King Piccolo, there are a couple things that you can know about. One, you need to ride the balance between removing their board and putting pressure on the leader. Again, these are 2 parts of the puzzle. You focus on one too hard and neglect the other, you will get out advantaged by the mid game. You focus on the life instead of the field, and you will actually just get hurt. So there are lots of decks that do this in a particularly well sort of way, Blue has a lot of bounce, and I would say this is maybe not the best kind of removal because Piccolo does go through its deck often. I mean, you were able to combo, add a card from your deck to your life, and then go over, you're searching from the deck with a couple cards. So this is kind of not the most finite version. Red versus red offers a very interesting matchup because you are constantly negging your opponent's things. And since red's magical numbers are minus 5k, minus 10k, minus 15k, there are a lot of times where you are absolutely just wiping King Piccolo's cards off the board outside of drum, unless you get lucky and you have an effect that has removed through barrier. This is kind of, I feel like, the best way because you're in stride of removing these things. Now, black also is a matchup that can particularly have a really good position on removing board while still pressing on the opponent. The only difference though is, sorry, nose ring, doing weird things. The only difference though is black doesn't necessarily have the same amount of free play defense as well as like defensive cards that red does. Red can sometimes defend itself while adding pressure to the board. Black, you can pressure people while removing stuff. You know, thwarting is going to remove things. Secret Identity is going to remove things. And Secret Identity can paperclip this deck really bad. You're usually going 2 cards for 1 when you play it. You've got, if you're playing Trunks Leader, you can just remove something for 1 energy. You've got a lot of things. So I'm not actually going to front on that. And even like Supreme Kai Negate, you're able to negate something, maybe remove something that's like bigger on the field waiting. So black and red actually have, I think, the best mixture of removal as well as pressure. Yellow is able to blow up a lot of things while tapped, and this deck will tap itself a fair amount, but yellow is in a weird precarious space right now. But the whole point I'm saying here is you have to be able to deal with the board, because if you don't deal with it, that board could easily get 3 more swings added to it, and you're looking at like being swung on 6-7 times per turn minimum. The unison is also a problem too, because normally how you work with aggro decks is you side in more defense, but because of Piccolo, you will be punished for those defenses. Any 15Ks or lower that don't have barrier, Piccolo will just eat off the board while it just attempts to push into the side of your face, and that's actually just really destructive. Piccolo Junior Unison, you guys already know about it. It is a very destructive unison, and it does things. On top of that, because this is the deck that Piccolo Junior Unison was made to run with, you have the ability quite often to pump something up and then -2 and then just blow up your opponent's entire field outside of barrier. So Piccolo has a lot of just interesting plays you can do. My one tip, if I had to tell you, is you just need to be able to make sure you can deal with the unison. And we're gonna go in depth a lot more. There's some things that I do definitely want to put out, and I'm kind of running out of time before the event. But Piccolo Jr. as a unison it's a crux to the deck. If you get it off the field, they will have, you know, 1 less card to draw with. They will actually be able to not destroy you just for trying to counter. You can actually freely use your counterplay block or counterattack blockers, because Piccolo just won't smoke the token immediately. You do open yourself up to Yamcha if they have another unison, but generally it's just the Piccolo. There's not really much of another reason to run a different unison. So this deck is just going to be in a place with that. Now mind you, because the deck starts off at 6 life and you only need 5 life for testing the opposition, you are in a lot of places where sometimes swinging on the unison, they will wall you. Between Scion, which is the big-headed, you know, kid Piccolo Jr. that's going to come out, between Scion and the ability to actually just testing very often, sometimes they will wall you off from the unison, and then you will waste an entire turn trying to kill the unison that you could have been trying to deal with the board. There's a lot of nuances, but hopefully on stream you'll be able to see that if you haven't seen it already on stream. So hey, that is what it is. Now moving on to Gogeta Zeno. Gogeta Zeno is indeed an aggro deck, and the whole thing about Gogeta Zeno is it is one of the most high roll, low roll decks of the format. If Gogeta Zeno fires on all cylinders, it can remove top 5, pay 1 energy, play thwarting on a turn. And that is essentially you getting swung on with the leader, you getting swung on with thwarting, and that 1 drop that you might have played on turn 1 getting removed at the same time. That's a huge shift in momentum. And unless you open up with, you know, a Realm of the Gods card, or, you know, some other sort of removal in your own deck, Gogeta can sometimes be hard to answer. You will just sit there and be like, nah, I'm good. I'm 25k, like, deal with me on first turn. Expend that hand if you choose. And that's really rough to deal with. And you could even get to 25k expending multiple cards in hand just for them to drop 1 card because they'd rather protect their 1 energy investment that's a powerhouse. To make this even worse, you go into turn 2 and, you know, they let's say you at this point charge a card, remove top 5, count how many sands you have in your, or how many black battle cards you have in your warp, and then you just swing combo Overrealm for a 3-cost Overrealm. You now can tap 2 and play Trunks, and at this very moment you have leader swing. Gogeta Zeno thwarting the Dark Empire at a double strike, Trunks swinging twice for 20k each, and whatever Overrealm that's probably 15k. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attacks on that turn. putting you in a really weird space where, can you kill Gogeta Zeno going into turn 3? Because if not, they will probably push you in on turn 4. So this one's a little easier to side into though. They don't have a thing like King Piccolo that's going to hurt you for trying to defend yourself. So yes, they have the taxation that is True Fighting Spirit, but with its unique errata, it can't just be compounded upon you for ultimate game. So now, a card like Protector of the People is going to go a very long way versus a deck like Gogeta Zeno. And that is what we like to see, baby. So I actually am very, very, very excited for that. Now, moving past Protector of the People, right? What Gogeta Zeno is another deck where you have to, some of the scariest turns for it are turns 1, 2, and 3, because they'll be able to put out pressure that shouldn't really be put out by decks at that point. And that is, like I said, a scary part in general. Now, when you play against it though, if you can survive those first 3 turns and start to stabilize, Gogeta Zeno generally will be doing the same things every turn. Now, they are the effective things. Thwarting is still always a beast, you know? SSG Trunks, still always a beast. But if you survive those first 3 turns, generally they're going to be doing the same things, and if you can always account for that, you know, remove the cards that are currently in the field and make them have to invest again, they will eventually hit a point where they kind of peter out. Gogeta Zeno can go early game, mid game, but it's not necessarily a long range deck, and by the time you get to those long range, it's going to be a little hard for them to deal with some of the bombs you're putting out. Now granted, once they have more energy, they may only need to use 3 energy a turn. 2, like effectively, 1 energy for thwarting and 2 energy for SSG Trunks. That's all you need, 3 energy, and that is 3 additional attacks to your board. That's going to spawn a overrealm that could be 6 costs. So you could potentially be adding 4 attacks to your board per turn just with 3 energy every turn until you run out of copies of SSG Trunks, thwarting, and whatever 6 cost overrealm you're playing. That is something that I think should be paid attention to. I don't think anybody should really overlook that. So coming off of that, you do have to realize that you can be petrified, petrification. There are defensive cards they can play, but like I was saying, I really don't think it's as crucial as some may think to, like, if you get out of the early stage of the game, you know, you're not just like cooked. So moving past that one, what you're now looking at is Shenron. Shenron is a variable switcher upper. The hardest part about Shenron is that Shenron, my catch is snuggling, Shenron is a deck where you cannot help but to be caught in the mix-up. You just can't. Shenron is a deck that can play very aggressively, it can play very controlly, and you're just at a position where you necessarily can't afford to get mixed up. When you go into Shenron, you have to understand that they play the game how they want to play it, and you have to adjust, and you have to adjust in time to not get swept. And there is a very high probability that you still get swept. And that is the hardest part about playing against the deck. You can't know whether they're going to go high or low until they let you know if you're going high or low. So the things you need to understand that every Sin deck will choose to do. Every Sin deck will be playing the 4-drop that goes into the 9-drop. And this combo is a viciously delicious combo because you turn your leader sideways once and your opponent puts you in a position where they will definitely rob you of your ability to swing. They will attack you and they will do their things. They'll get their top 5 search, but they will also lock you out of your leader being able to swing next turn. They'll evolve into the 4, tap down, or prevent your leader from swinging, and they'll evolve into the 9, and the 9 will essentially trick bind if you play Magic. Trick bind is a card that just says, hey, for this turn, blank that card's ability. It trick binds your battle cards upon entry. And it's not a counter effect, so it gets around deflect. It just can't get around, like, it's pretty strong. Your card comes into play, and Shenron is like, well, that card, nah. Like, get that out of here. It's not having an effect. And this slows down your deck. And against a deck like Shenron, you can't afford to be stunned for a turn. That is dangerous to the point where, you could play 4 energy worth of things and they don't do anything. So you have to actually get around this 9-drop. Now, talking about that 9-drop, the easiest way I could say, that you can get around it is the Realm of the Gods cards offer a unique ability to just get rid of overcosted cards. And I don't know, let's be real, you are going to be able to get rid of these cards throughout the entire game. Like, by the time you could be losing to Sin when they tap 6, which is like the Omega Exodia play, you should be able to use your Realm of the God cards anytime you see them correctly. And so all that means is a single attack with a Unison or a leader, if the leader has not been tapped down for game, will result in you being able to tap 1, use Realm of the Gods, remove. Now they do get a ball and they do draw 2. But herein lies a bunch of other things, because they get a ball. This ball opens up a counter window. You could use Yamcha counterplay, you could use not only Yamcha counterplay, you can use charismatic on like something else, right? Like you could just use a counterplay and make sure you hit other things on the field. It's actually very, very important. Or if you have Koitsukai in play, you could remove Koitsukai and then blow up their Sin and just let them have to make a tough decision, or likely just let the ball not do anything. So this is actually a really, really, really good point for these things. The Realm of the Gods cards can also help you with the Gogeta Zeno matchup, whether you're defending yourself by going a little taller than their attacks, or just killing the Gogeta Zeno out of the game until they remove it and loop it back with Beyond All Limits. Sin also has its tap 6, which brings back up to 7 Shadow Dragons with different names, which is generally their gameplay. Once they bring back that Secret Rare blocker, if they play it, they bring back their Skill Drain or their Trick Binder. They bring back their 8-drop, so it's ready to start absorbing things again. That's actually a massive issue. And so you should probably have a card that can either try to finish them on turn 5. Spoiler alert, that's not as easy as it sounds. Not nearly. Or a card that tries to make it so that they can't do it. Red has Vegito Unison. You're going to be able to play that card and just be like, hey, yo, what it do? And if their field is clear and you -2, they can't tap 6. They have to kill you another way, which they can. So, and then you also have, blue, if they have their Unison up. Now, granted, you shouldn't be starting off your turn by tapping 6, especially if you have a board already. But if you don't have a board and they have to invest to it, they have to either choose to invest outside of the tap 6, which is generally the better move, because tapping 6 to be God Sealing is just game. There's a whole lot of stuff. There's a couple niche cards that you can use in order to attempt to not be domed immediately by that. But that's that. Now, with the rest of the time, I do want to talk about decks that we will see, but decks that just are a little bit below on power. And let me just be honest, you can play so many decks this format, and the pilot skill is going to matter more than a lot of factors. But I'm just letting you know that those 3 decks that I mentioned are the decks that are really out of control in terms of the fact that they are just actually stronger than the other decks that I'm about to mention. You've got Soul Striker, and I'm just saying, I'm not saying Soul Striker is weak, it's just that these other 3 decks can either beat Soul Striker to stabilize, to their stabilization point, or tempo Soul Striker in the control game. So yeah, Soul Striker will naturally, in a lot of cases, let Sin get to a certain point where, Sin is just like, I am God now, and that's that's bad. So, on the other hand, King Piccolo and Gogeta Zeno can push, they could push Soul Striker in uncomfortable positions early mid-game. So what you're looking at now is the fact that Soul Striker can be played in multiple variants. It could be mono blue, it could be blue yellow, which is going to have a lot more control aspects, or card effects they're going to tap and slow down. Also the ability to play lightning fast Kefla, which is a monster. It also, you can play it as red blue, which is going to have invoker abilities to burn you for multiple times. There are different ways you can counter this. Like, I know if you're playing red, playing Vegito Unison of Might, it's -2 on the right turn will prevent them from going into Rival Seeker, from going into Energy Explosion, and then in that point from going into their Cat Blow play for 1 energy, while establishing lots of red-blue energy. Other decks have things to do with that as well. I mean, you can, of course, like blue versus blue is a rough matchup in some cases. There's other things you can do. I mean, I'm not gonna joke like green is just chilling out here doing the thing, but green could counterplay as well. You have a fair amount of things that work and don't work. But Soul Striker is just one of those decks where it's always gonna be consistent, but it's not ever going to just be like, okay, I'm ruining the game because I'm playing Soul Striker. So you want to make sure that you understand how it works so you're not caught off guard. But if you're playing a valid deck and you know what you're doing, I hate to say it, Soul Striker may not be the biggest threat on your docket. Moving past that, you got Yellow Trunks. Yellow Trunks Gogeta is, again, it's probably the most solid mono yellow deck. I don't count Sin Shenron as mono yellow because Sin Shenron is Sin Shenron. But outside of that, I'd say it's the most consistent mono yellow deck we have right now. That being said, it's got a cool boss card, but it's doing essentially what Icarus could do, except worse. And so if you know your Icarus matchup, you shouldn't really have a problem with Trunks. Trunks Zeno represented, but it be what it be. That deck is essentially Gogeta Zeno Light right now, has a cool couple of functions, but it's not as fast as Gogeta Zeno, and right now, I don't think Black has the mid/late game to support it being a deck slower than Gogeta Zeno in this format. Now, then you have U7 Goku, and I didn't put this on the list for last because I don't think it's powerful, but Gogeta Zeno, Goku U7 is a very powerful deck, but people are still trying to figure out how to best run it, and as long as that's the case, you have that variance of running into it and being like, oh, I know this matchup and it's easy, or running into a player that knows how to play it. Like, playing a random person with U7 Goku is night and day from playing somebody like Jonik or Sublet. Like, you're just going to see it differently. Or, wow, I'm so sorry. You're from Team Berserk. I don't want to butcher your name, and I'm personally too afraid to try it, but I'm just gonna call him Beer. Like, B-I-R. Like, he also went super hard with it. You have players that can play this deck at a higher level and understand its tech choices and understand its place in the format better, and that's going to really influence it. But right now, I feel like U7 Goku is a work in progress, so you have to be very careful about how you deal with it. But in that regard, they put on a lot of pressure via battle cards, and so some of the things that you side in, a lot of the things that you side in for Gogeta Zeno, as well as King Piccolo, will be effective versus that, you know. Your Sensu Beans are going to go a long way because the deck puts pressure onto the board, but it doesn't necessarily apply combo pressure. So Sensu Beans will go a very long way for you. Imposing Presence will go a long way for you. Defender or Protector of the People will go a long way from you. They are another deck where dealing with their board is going to help you immensely because they have to reestablish it using energy. They're not like King Piccolo. They don't free play a bunch of stuff. They pay 1, they pay 2, they pay 4. So a single well-targeted Kai or Vegeta is going to set them back to a point where they almost can't recover, and that's a very, very, very scary thing to consider. So, that being said, there's plenty of other things. The last part I want to touch about is Mill. Mill can do some work, and like I've said before, Mill comes in 3 different flavors. You know, you got Steady Mill and Janemba. You got like low-key combo Mill and Cooler. They have a lot of small interactions that chip away, keep them safe while burning you out, milling you out. And then you have uber duper combo Mill in the form of 18, which is going to set up a huge, massive, sloppy play and then just blow out your entire deck with a bunch of tokens that got minus from Frieza. So that is what it is. Those, you really have to kind of look at their stuff. Janemba is a race against the clock, but a steady race. You can control a lot more of how you mill or how you speed through your deck in order to play against it correctly. Now when it comes to Cooler, Cooler is very strange because Cooler is able to really capitalize on you playing more battle cards throughout the game. And so with Cooler, if you can pressure hard with your Unison, if you can pressure hard with your leader, you will do a lot better with Cooler. But Cooler is a red-blue deck, so it's got combo power and it's got battle tricks. But you have to be careful how many things you put to the board because a full board could equal a not full deck very quickly. Now, moving on to 18. 18 is more of a time clock. It's a ticking time bomb. You need to kill it before its kill turn. If you can't force it to use Baby Hatch before turn 5 or 6, you're probably just dead because they will Baby Hatch you and then just move directly into their kill turn unabated. And there's some cards you can use to get around that, but once you get to that point, it's rough. Like, I won't even front, it's rough. So that is currently my kind of comprehensive. I want to go into more detail, but this is a very, very chunky video, and well, not very, very chunky, but it's already 25 minutes, and I want to make sure that I don't kind of oversaturate it. If you guys want me to do a follow-up in the comments, let me know what I could be talking about more from this breakdown, and I'll see what I can do. I've only really got one day before I start heading out to Miami, so I'll see what I can do. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said, if you like the content, think about hitting that subscribe button, that notification button. like the video, so it helped trends and stuff like that. And thank you guys for all the likes in the last video. Thank you guys for the views. We are going up in Universe X, and I will see you guys next time.